Good morning to our learners. Our topic for today is in Chapter 5, Lesson 1 of your book, The Respiratory System. Let's start. What is the role of respiratory system? In an average day, you may breathe 20,000 times. Yes, that is true. You breathe all the time because your body cells need oxygen, which comes from the air. But didn't you know that the air around us here on Earth contains not only oxygen? Remember in your chemistry time? I mentioned before that the air here on Earth contains nitrogen, carbon dioxide, oxygen, and argon. But how does our lungs only capture oxygen? Isn't it weird? Isn't it amazing? Yes, that is really amazing. That is how our body works. It only captures one type of gas in the air that we breathe, and then that is oxygen. Now, the key point for our topic for today is your respiratory system moves air containing oxygen into your lungs and removes carbon dioxide and water as a waste product. We will also discuss the structure or the parts of the respiratory system. Okay, so let's start. We all know that respiration is the action of breathing. So when you breathe in and breathe in or inhale, and then when you exhale, that is the action of breathing or respiration. But the process never stops there. Once our nose, okay, inhale oxygen, it never stopped there. There is another process that is happening. That is a cellular respiration. What is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration is the process in which the body cells break down glucose, or also known as the simple sugar that we take from our food. By the help of the oxygen that we breathe in, it will produce energy. After producing the energy, carbon dioxide and water are produced. So the waste product is carbon dioxide. Okay, so now breathing gets oxygen needed for cellular respiration into our body. However, for oxygen to get to your cell, there are many body systems that is passing through. So it is not only respiratory system that is responsible for this process. There are many body systems that is involved in this process. Okay, let's proceed to figure 1 to illustrate. Now, respiratory system is responsible for capturing or for getting air into our body. Respiratory system moves air which contain oxygen into our body. And then the digestive system is responsible for providing glucose. Remember when we eat carbohydrates, and then that carbohydrates can be converted as a simple sugar or glucose that is used in cellular respiration. So respiratory system is responsible for giving in oxygen, and then digestive system is responsible for releasing the glucose. So when oxygen and glucose is now inside our body, the circulatory system is responsible for delivering the oxygen, which processed by the respiratory system, and then the glucose, which is processed by the digestive system. So now remember that circulatory system is responsible for delivering materials, right? So after the circulatory system takes that in the blood, it will be delivered now to body cell. Now the body cell now will process. That process is called the cellular respiration. The body cell use glucose and oxygen to release energy. Isn't it amazing again that there are 3 body systems involved to produce energy? Without these 3 body systems, we don't have energy to do activity. Without the respiratory system, our body cannot capture oxygen, cannot get oxygen. Without the digestive system, the food that we eat cannot be processed as a nutrients, and then it cannot be converted as a glucose. And then the circulatory system, it will not be delivered. The oxygen and the glucose will not be delivered without the circulatory system to our cell. So they work hand in hand to produce energy. Okay, so let's go to the structure for respiratory system. The respiratory system structure are, let's start with the nose. Next is the pharynx, trachea, the bronchi, and then the lungs. So 5 major organs in our respiratory system. So let's start with our nose. The nose is our external meaning it is the outer part of respiratory system. So you can see it, you could touch it. So that is external. Air enters the body through the nose or the mouth. Here in the nose trap large particles. The air passes into spaces called the nasal cavity. So the opening in our nose is called the nasal cavity. That is where the air is passing through. Some cells lining the nasal cavities produces mucus. So the liquid, sticky material inside your nose is called mucus. This mucus helps to trap the big particles and dust that is passing through our nose. So mucus is very helpful to trap big particles, okay, and dust. And when it dries, it become a booger. Okay, so booger is not bad. Okay, so that is just a product of mucus, okay, trapping big particles and dust that we are inhaling. Okay, so let's go now to pharynx and trachea. From the nose, air enters the pharynx, okay, or also known as our throat. Both nose and the mouth connects the pharynx. So air and then the food enters the pharynx. From the pharynx, air moves to trachea. Remember in your digestive system, I have discussed the esophagus, which is the food pipe, and then we also discussed there the windpipe. We have in between, we call it as a epiglottis. Remember epiglottis, it's a thin flap tissue that covers the opening of trachea to keep our food out. Okay, so we have here, the epiglottis is here. So it is a flap of tissue that covers here. It says that, it says here, where is the epiglottis? Okay, here. When we swallow, the thin flap tissue called the epiglottis covers the opening of trachea. So trachea, remember that is a windpipe. So when we are eating, it covers the trachea so that food is not passing through the windpipe. Because if food passes through the windpipe, we will be choked, and then that chokeness could lead us to death. Because lungs is not made for food. Lungs is made for air. The pink one here is for the food pipe, also known as the esophagus, that leads to stomach. Okay, so after the trachea, it goes now here. It says after the trachea or the windpipe, it proceeds now to our this is the next part. It proceeds now to bronchi and then to the lungs. Air moves from trachea into the left and the right bronchi. Okay, so this is the, wait, I will show you. This is now the bronchi. Okay, so there are two, the left and the right. So it passes through the bronchi. After it passes through the bronchi. It passes now to alveoli. What is an alveoli? Okay, let's finish this one first. Air moves from trachea into the left and right of bronchi. The singular is bronchus. That's why here it is written bronchus, because it is only showing one part. But if it is plural, it is called bronchi. Now it says here, after the bronchi part, the lungs are the main organ of the respiratory system. Inside the lungs, there are bronchi branch. Okay? And then after that one, there is an alveoli. Okay? Alveoli is a plural and alveolus is a singular. That is a tiny walled sac of the lungs where gases can move between air and blood. So after the bronchi, next is the alveoli. So this tiny branches sac here is called the alveoli. The big branch here is called the bronchus. And then the alveoli is here. Okay, and then the whole mass of organ here is called the lungs. So let's start again. So the process starts in the nose. So air passes through the nose and then it goes to our pharynx. Okay, the pharynx, it is the passageway between the nose and then the trachea. And then the trachea, it continues to warm and clean the moistened air before it reaches the bronchi. So this is the next part. Then afterward, it goes to bronchus. So it's just like a tube. Okay, the air moves through it to reach the alveoli in the lung. So the alveoli is the last part here, which is processing the gases exchange. Okay, so if you try to look at alveoli in the microscope, it looks like this one. It says here that alveoli is a tiny thin walled sac of lung tissue where gases can move between air and blood. So here alveoli is helping also to trap some particles like the dust, the pollen. Pollen is from flowers, dust is from the dust particles. Okay, so let's try to answer figure number 2. The photo shows in microscopic view of cilia. So this is a cilia. Relate the cause and effect. How does coughing protects respiratory system? So when we cough, it gets rid the inhaled particle. So when we cough, it gets rid, meaning it releases, okay, the dust or the pollen when we cough. Number 2, what might happen if you did not have hair in your nose and cilia in your trachea? Cilia, it's a tiny hair, okay? Inside our trachea, it is like a broom that cleans our trachea. So the possible answer, without it, particles in air could get to the lungs and damage them. Okay? So this part, the last part, is what is cellular respiration? It is the process in which cells use glucose and oxygen to release energy. Compare and contrast. How are breathing and cellular respiration different? Breathing brings oxygen into the body and respiration breaks down glucose into cell to make energy. And now I know the respiratory system, that it takes oxygen and remove carbon dioxide and water from the body. Thank you for listening. I hope you learned something. If you have some question, post it in Classera or in my private WhatsApp. Thank you.